All right, we also have to remember that strong words are important for vocabulary questions as well. Basically, anytime that the logic of the passage, the meaning of the passage is important to us, we need to think about what words are going to stand out, which ones are the most important of everything in the passage. So grammar questions, we don't really need to think about strong words because it's not about the content of the sentences, it's about their structure. So this vocab question, yes, the passage is shorter, but there are definitely certain things I'd be paying attention to as I read, and we're going to highlight them as we go. Software architects advocating for fault-tolerant system design contend that enterprise should establish multi-layered contingency protocols. I barely understand what that means, but again, multi-layered, that might seem important. That's kind of descriptive. Comprehensive backup frameworks can eliminate blank operations that arise when automated processes inadvertently repeat identical computational sequences. So lots of what we would think of as like technical jargon, right? Words that are very specific to what it must be like to be a software architect, right? You use probably a lot of these words every day. But I am not a software architect. I don't know these words. But the words that do stand out to me, especially at the end, are going to be the ones that don't really have anything to do with being a software architect, that are much more descriptive, that I would understand in any circumstance, right? Inadvertently repeat. That is a descriptive, strong phrase in the same way that saying the cat is bad is strong or the cat is pretty. All this other stuff is a lot of kind of like the red cat, the house cat. It's describing it, but not in a way that's moving the story forward in any way or giving me some sort of different perspective on the cat, or in this case, the software. So inadvertently repeat, right? That can help me out with this blank. Comprehensive backup frameworks can eliminate, how about like repetition? Repeated operations that arise when automatic processes inadvertently repeat identical computational sequences. You see how like, I'm not that clever here. The best thing about noticing strong words in the vocab sentences is that they're the ones that are going to give us some information about the blank. And sometimes you can just kind of like tweak the word a little bit and pop it in there in the blank and just be like, okay, I'm looking for a word that means this. Now when I go to the choices, it's less about like this open-ended question of, does this word make sense in the blank? And more of this much more narrow yes or no question, does this word mean repeated? Let's see. Does streamlined mean repeated? No. Does redundant mean repeated? Yes. If something's redundant, it's repeated unnecessarily, inadvertently, maybe. So that could work. Does modular mean repeated? No. You probably don't know what modular means. I'll talk more about these words in a second, but the short answer is no. This is the benefit of a yes, no. Because even if you have a vague sense of the word, you probably have enough of a sense to answer yes or no and put it in one of those. Does encrypted mean repeated? No. So it's B. And first of all, redundant, like I said, it means repeated, but it's also a word that you should kind of know. It's a very common SAT word. It is a very common word that you should know if you're in high school. And so redundant, good fit here. And we're eliminating the redundant operations and that come from inadvertently repeating sequences, right? So we are kind of just defining it right afterwards. It's very common. Inadvertent means kind of like, in this case, accidentally repeated. If something's inadvertent, it's not done on purpose. That's probably it. Everything else feels just like in the passage, like kind of random computer jargon. Streamlined means kind of like efficient, right? It doesn't have redundancies, right? So maybe A is like a trap answer because it's kind of related to things being kind of efficient and repeated, but it's the opposite of what we want, right? We're not eliminating the streamlined operations. We are creating a streamlined operation by eliminating the repetitions that make it less efficient, that make it less, streamlined. Modular, like think of the SAT, right? We call the sections in the SAT modules, right? They're little sections. So modular means kind of like sectioned off, right, into little groups. And I guess maybe, I don't know anything about software, so I'm sure that there is something about that. And maybe we could tell a vast kind of story to say that if we're trying to get rid of repetitions, we're going to get rid of the different sections of the software and bring them together. But notice how like that's a crazy story. I don't even know if that makes any sense. But it's so much easier just to fit B in. So don't force words if others fit better. And then D, I think, kind of C probably is like this as well. these are words we associate with computers, right? Like encrypted, we have an encrypted chat, right? It means that other people can't read the chat. So we may pick something like D just because it's like a word we associate with software, but it has had nothing to do with this. Encrypted, I guess, means, like encoded, right? So it's kind of hidden. It's something that someone would need to decode in order to understand it. So that has just nothing to do with what we're talking about. So that's completely random. So I don't think this is a hard question. I think a lot of people would be able to get this without ever having the idea of the strategy, strong words come into their mind. But I think it's because this one very much like automatically makes us think about that. If we understand what we're reading, I would hope that most people would be able to justify their answer with the strong words here. But notice there are lots of other adjectives and nouns that are very confusing all around this passage. What the strong word strategy is about is knowing that those ones don't matter. They're not helping me understand what's going on. It's what we say about all that weird jargon stuff that matters most. And you should know what it means to repeat something. That is not an unusual phrase. So the best thing about strong words is they're very rarely difficult words. They're almost always common words that we know. It's just that we have to know that they matter in this particular question. So hopefully now you understand strong words, lots of passage questions, but also vocab questions as well.